Hi, my name's Don. Welcome back to Project Urtle. In this episode we're going to sew some upholstery for the dinette and canvas for the pop top. Adele is taking the lead in this part of the project and I'm just the helper. We're going to sew cushions for the dinette and we're using some fake suede fabric, and there'll be 4 individual cushions made, 2 backs and 2 seats. After cutting out all the components, the first job is to sew the zips. It can be a bit fiddly, and because there's so many layers, sewing machines don't really like this much. But Dell's dragged out an old sewing machine of hers which is got a metal frame and it seems to handle it okay. We're quite pleased with how they've turned out, and it looks nice and fresh and clean and professional looking. Now for the big project, the canvas for the pop top. I spent literally months trying to find a canvas maker who was interested in doing the job and then would actually do the job when I told him he could. It's been quite frustrating. In the end, one of the people that I approached to do the job obviously didn't have any time available to do it, and although he had purchased the raw materials to do it, so I talked him into selling the materials to me. Then I found a fellow who was local to us who rented out industrial sewing machines. So that meant that I had to step up and do this job myself. YouTube is a wonderful thing, and I have to admit that I know everything I know about canvas making to YouTube, and in particular a company called Sailrite. They sell sewing machines and tell you how to use them to make anything you want for the sailing industry, such as sails, upholstery, bimini covers, that kind of thing. And I spent literally weeks of evenings watching their YouTubes in order to be able to do this job. Here I'm using a hot knife that I cobbled together using an old soldering iron and a scalpel blade. It worked good. I thought it would really important to cut this material with a hot knife so it wouldn't fray. According to my research, the place to start is by making your windows. And in this case we're having a 3-layer window. It'll have canvas layer for complete block out. It'll have a clear layer for visibility without having the wind coming in, and then a fly screen layer to have the breeze but no insects coming in. It's going to be flat on the bottom and have a curved top with a zip around it. The material I chose to build the pop-top canvas from is called Jetty. It's a polyester canvas and it's waterproof. It has good UV stability and designed for the marine industry and outdoor uses such as sun umbrellas and the like. Here I'm setting out that same window shape that I did with the clears, and then it is a matter of sewing on some webbing tape on one side and continuous zipper on the other side. In order to hold all these things together while you sew it, I've been using double-sided adhesive tape. It's called basting tape, and it works a treat. You just couldn't do a job like this, at least an amateur couldn't, without it. You can see that I've using the stitching from putting down the bias tape on the other side of the canvas to line up the zip on the inside. At some stages there's quite a lot of material to have to fit through the throat of the sewing machine. This particular sewing machine, although it's a heavy industrial machine, hasn't got a terribly wide throat. But by scrolling the material up and holding it with clothes pegs, the job is very easily done, really. Although this machine is capable of sewing quite quickly, I found for an amateur like me that if I slowed it right down and just let it walk along, I would eventually get to the end of each seam, and there was much less chance of me making a boo-boo that would require me to go back and unpick it again and start again. Here I'm pasting bias tape around the outlines that I drew previously on the clears, and I'm using that double-sided basting tape again to hold it in position. I'll need 2 rows of this tape around each of the cutouts, and eventually when the zip is sewn on the other side, we'll slice it between these 2 tapes. Each cut raw edge of the bias tape is sealed, and I'm just using a little flamethrower / cigarette lighter to do that. Once taped into place, a run of stitching is run down those two edges where the tape is quite close to each other, one each side of the gap, and that will hold that down securely. Then when it's flipped over and the zip sewn on the other side, we'll sew the zip down on the outer edge, giving us 2 rows of stitching and a little pocket, if you like, inside, which will allow the zip to function. Having stitched down both sides of the zip, then it's a matter of opening up the zip and fitting the zip pulls in there. Each zipper has got 2 zip pulls, one running from each side. It's now time to prepare to add the fly screens to the clears. And what I'm doing here is using that double-sided adhesive tape to outline the perimeter, and then we'll lay the fly screen flat on top of the window, stick it down to the double-sided tape, and then add some more of that bias tape to finish the edges. Once the bias tape is stuck down around the perimeter, we will take it over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. That will stitch the fly screens to the clears, and after that we can cut it out to the final shape. Once cut out, it's time to slip the clears underneath the zip, and carefully slipping in the scissors, slicing the clear between the 2 bias tapes that are on the other side. You end up with a really nice neat finish. The next job is to stitch along the bottom edge, but before I can do that I need to insert a tab of bias tape which will have some velcro on the tip of it and allow me to anchor the window when it's rolled up. At this stage we've got a lot of thicknesses to sew through. There's the clear, there's the fly screen, there's 2 layers of tape, and then just coming up now we're going to sew over the zips, and sewing backwards and forwards a couple of times there locks the bottom of that zip in so that it can't undo. Once again I forgot to video a section here, and that was sewing the windows onto the canvas itself. Here I'm sewing on a strip of canvas which will be folded over and become the hem at top and bottom of the canvas sides. This will hold a metal rod which will be used to lock the sides into the pop-top roof. Having sewn the canvas, it was then time to constrict Urtle again to help me fit the canvas to the pop-top. There's a hem at top and bottom of this canvas, as I said, and there's a metal rod which I'm slipping into the hem, and that metal rod allows me to lock the edge of the canvas into the slot in the pop-top extrusions, and then we'll add a pop rivet or 3 into there to hold it there permanently. Ready? Here we go. Okay, ready? The same metal rod arrangement works at the bottom of the canvas as well, and here I am putting in the long side piece. Once we'd locked down the bottoms all the way around, it was time to stand back and have a look. And I think we were well pleased. You'll notice that corner there is open. That corner was left open because there's no way you could attach the pop top in any other way than as one long strip. It couldn't be a completely closed loop. So once installed, then there was a special piece that I made that was stitched on to the outside of that corner, and that had to be stitched by hand using one of these little handy stitches. That requires 2 people, one on the inside feeding the second thread through, while I'm pushing in the needle from the other side. Dell provides some backup for that needle with that lump of foam, threads the thread through each stitch, and in order to keep it looking nice and neat and professional, I had pre-stitched a line along the little patch we put on there, and I followed those stitches exactly 1 for 1.